changing the way we do the business of medicine. Now, as a surgeon, as a practitioner of medicine, I went into a practice, not a business of medicine. But I decided that it is now also very much a business. It has been a business for a number of years. To many of my colleagues, they don't know it's a business. They still think it's a practice. It's hard to predict what will go on in the future. I recently spoke with a healthcare futurist, and he asked some questions. I think I got most of the answers right. I'm going to test you, too. Do you think that in the future we will have more or less change in healthcare? More. I think that's pretty safe. Do you think things are going to become more or less complicated? More complicated. Do you think we're going to have more benchmarking and standardization? I believe so. Do you think we're going to have more or less emphasis on value to a buyer of healthcare? More. Do you think we're going to be requested to go into more different directions at the same time or less different directions? I think more. You see, that's the thing. It changes. We are today on a healthcare relationship, collaboration, and partnership journey with all what I call the dots of healthcare. You see, now when I drove in last night, I didn't have my Hertz rental car because I'm close enough to home to drive. But whenever I drive a rental car, I get the Hertz Never Lost. Anybody rent a car with Hertz Never Lost? It's wonderful. It's better than my wife. I mean, if I miss an exit with my wife, she goes, "You missed the exit." And Mrs. Magellan just says, "Recalculating route." Thank you very much. It would be wonderful if in healthcare we had a GPS positioning system so we could figure out where we're going. But the problem is they keep changing where we go before we can make it there. I've discovered that the process of working with the other dots of healthcare is the reward of these changing targets of where we want to go. It's that process that we need to work to connect those dots. The question is in the future, will you be more or less connected with the dots of healthcare? You see, that's entirely up to you. You can be more connected or you don't have to be as connected. But I think that we've got a problem in healthcare. There are so many different fragmentations of healthcare. We have been weakened by this fragmentation. And every day a new dot of healthcare shows up. And it's hard to keep track of all of them. And we try to connect with other dots of healthcare, but often we do it in a linear fashion, which I don't believe is enough for the future of healthcare, for all the changes we have to endure. Rather, I think the way to connect can be seen on just about any admission order to a hospital for a patient taking oral medications. Can you see the solution? Can you see it now? Can you see it now? What's MVI? Multivitamins. Well, this is like a multivitamin. You see, a vitamin is a catalyst. It's a catalyst to the chemical reactions that go on in our body, which keep us alive. It doesn't enter into the reactions, but it's a catalyst that drives the reactions one direction or another. Well, MVI in this instance is like a catalyst, but it doesn't stand for multivitamin. Rather, MVI stands for something completely different. MVI stands for mutual value integration. It's where we can take the strong parts of all the different dots of healthcare, and by reducing the fragmentation, by increasing the connectivity, we rise everyone's ability to take care of patients. There are three components of mutual value integration. HPI, which doesn't stand for history of present illness. Rather, it stands for honoring the contribution that all the dots of healthcare make. To promote and pursue good business chemistry among the different dots of healthcare. And also to improve communication between all the different dots of healthcare. Well, what do I mean by dots of healthcare? You see, there's so many different dots of healthcare, it's hard to keep track of all of them. So I've arranged a model for you to see. It has 6 dots, and this is the model I've used for years and years. My question to you is, how many dots are you? You can be more than one dot of healthcare, but you can only be one dot of healthcare at a given time. Let me explain. I'm a physician dot. Sometimes I'm a patient dot. I also run a healthcare business. So I'm 3 dots, but there's also staff dots, staff of hospital or an office, hospital dots, payer dots. How many dots are you? You see, depending on which dot you are, it affects your perspective of the healthcare ecosystem. Third-party payer might look at the world like this, or a hospital might look at it like this, or a staff member might look at it like this. Healthcare business looks at it like this. My personal favorite model, of course, is the geocentric model, where the physician is the center of the healthcare universe, and everyone revolves around the physician. I don't think that's the accurate representation of the ecosystem we are in. It is an ecosystem, because what one dot does has a ripple effect and affects all the other dots in this ecosystem. This ecosystem is being driven by evolutionary forces, mainly economic. And this is how it evolves. This is how our healthcare ecosystem is evolving. I think this is the orientation we ought to have, which is a patient-centric orientation. Now, we've always been patient-focused, but like Plaintree, patient-centric means we view the perspective of the healthcare ecosystem from the lens of the patient. As physicians, we've always been patient-focused. We focus on patients, but we rarely look at the world through the eyes of a patient. How many of you have entered the front doors or the side doors or the emergency room doors of your hospital in a wheelchair or on a stretcher? It's that patient-centeredness and understanding the world of the dots of healthcare from the eyes of a patient that make it patient-centered. If we can connect a patient to a hospital in a more meaningful way, that's good for both hospital and patient. But if we can connect a patient to a payer in a more meaningful way, that's good also. Or to a healthcare business or to staff, or physicians can connect better to patients. That's good for patients and also good for physicians. And all of that helps patients. But if we can connect physicians to hospitals in a more meaningful way, that is good not only for the physician in the hospital, but also for the patient. And if we can connect to payers, to healthcare businesses, and we can have all the dots of healthcare connect to each other in a more beneficial, meaningful way, that's better for a patient in a patient-centric healthcare universe. That's what I mean by connecting the dots of healthcare. Now, this is a model I've used for years until recently. I had to change my model. Who's a nurse? Nurses have their own dots now. This wasn't my idea. This is the federal government's idea. They have designated nurses have their own dot. But there's so many other dots, but I feel compelled to put nursing in as a specific dot. The bottom line is we are all in this together. And it is up to all of us together to figure out solutions to the problems that we face in our healthcare ecosystem. The Dalai Lama said all beings and events are relational and interconnected and therefore have no separate absolute reality in space and time. That's how it is with the dots of healthcare. We are all interconnected, whether or not we acknowledge that connectivity. But if we can acknowledge that connectivity and use each other's strengths to raise the level of performance of not only the dots of healthcare, but for patient care, then we're doing well. In your conference today, these are your dots that you're connecting. You're connecting physicians, employees, leadership, other hospitals, referral hospitals, and also you're affecting communities. These are the dots that you're going to be discussing over the next 2 days in your healthcare ecosystem for this conference. You know, I didn't give you my credentials as a dotsultant, did I? I am an MD, FACS, CSP, CHCO, CHCC, which is way too many initials. So I just shortened it. I'm an MD, FAC7, S2, H2OP, which basically means I'm a doctor with some watered-down facts and a little P on the end, and that's what I'm going to be presenting to you today. This is the guy that really brought you the program. I mean, you're saying, who is this guy? He looks like a consultant speaker. No, the guy you see bringing you the program really is this guy. Well, let me tell you my story about how I, as a general surgeon, got involved in the business of medicine. Because the person you see here is not the person that I really am. This is who I am. Let me show you who really brought you this program. Not the guy you saw, but this guy. That's much better. Let me tell you my story. Here's my story. It's sad but true. It's about a profession I once knew. I love my job. They cut my pay. They changed the rules. It's gone away. Whoa.